Hello, my name is Deborah Abela and I'm an author. And I got my shark onesie on, I got my little cuddly orange blanket, and I thought I'd read a story. This is the Stupendously Spectacular Spelling Bee. And I wrote this because of Miss Gray, my Year 4 teacher, who made me love words and books. Chapter 1, Tremulous. This is an adjective. It means to be nervous or timid or quite a bit shivery. The girl felt tremulous at the challenging task ahead. India Wimple could spell brilliantly. On Friday nights, she and her family would huddle in front of the TV in their pyjamas in their small house in Younger and watch the Stupendously Spectacular Spelling Bee. India adored her family. It was the most important thing about her. There was her younger brother Boo, Mum, Dad and Nana Flo. Nana Flo hadn't always lived with them. She'd moved in after she fell and broke her wrist during a particularly enthusiastic yoga move. She wasn't happy about leaving her home where she'd lived with Grandpop for over 40 years. She made a bit of a fuss, mostly by stomping around and saying "fiddlesticks" a lot, which was as close to swearing as Nana Flo ever got. But she soon realised she was much happier surrounded by her family, and the stomping and almost swearing stopped. One particular Friday night where our story begins, the Wimples again huddled in front of the TV, as they usually did. But this night was different. It was the Stupendously Spectacular Spelling Bee Grand Final, and, as it happened, it was also the day the Wimples' lives would change forever. India and Boo stretched out on the floor with their chins cupped in their hands, while Mum, Dad, Nana Flo and Ernie sat snugly on the lounge behind them. Mum, Dad and Nana Flo were people. Ernie was a large statue of a bulldog that Nana Flo insisted on taking with her everywhere, much to her family's embarrassment. Not only was Ernie remarkably heavy, he was also incredibly ugly and had the unfortunate habit of scaring young children. On the TV was a diminutive, barely there girl with bouncy black curls, whose mouth was wide open as if she'd just had a very big shock. Her name was Katerina. After months of spelling bee heats held all around the country, there were only 2 spellers left. Katerina was one of them, and her mouth was wide open because her opponent had misspelled his last word. He moved aside with a shake of his head, and Katerina stepped up to the microphone. She looked so small standing on the main stage of the concert hall at the Sydney Opera House, dwarfed by its huge arched ceilings. She took a deep breath, looking more like a girl about to fall off a mountain, a very high mountain, than someone who was simply going to spell. Her body quivered, her curls shook. It was indeed a tremulous moment. The camera cut to her parents sitting in the front row. Her dad gave her a thumbs up, and her mother raised double-crossed fingers. This seemed to make Katerina relax a little, but then she looked like she was on top of that mountain again. Not far from her, sparkling in the stage lights, was the Stupendously Spectacular Spelling Bee trophy. If she spelled the next word correctly, she would be the new champion, and the trophy would be hers. The concert hall fell deathly silent as the pronouncer, Philomena Sprite, prepared to reveal the next word. Philomena had been the official pronouncer longer than India had been alive. Her hair sat perched on her head in a perfect soft-serve ice cream swirl. She always wore very glamorous dresses and heels so high that India worried she might trip over one day, but she never did. Philomena Sprite held a small card with her bright red fingernails in front of her equally bright red lips. On the card was written, quite possibly, the final word of the competition. Very carefully, Philomena pronounced, "Tremulous, an adjective meaning nervous, timid or quite a bit shivery. Using it in a sentence, I could say, the girl felt tremulous at facing the next word of the Spelling Bee Grand Final." The audience quietly chuckled before settling into an anxious silence. Katerina took a few seconds to think. In the Wimple family home far, far away, India whispered the spelling of the word without hesitation. "That's the right answer, isn't it?" Boo asked. India's auburn plaits swung as she nodded. "I'm sure of it." Katerina crossed both fingers behind her back and began to spell. Tremulous, T-R-E-M-U-L-O-U-S. She finished by saying the word with one final, hopeful flourish. tremulous? Philomena Sprite paused for effect, which she always did. It was her way of building suspense, of making the audience and the contestants lean in, eager to hear her verdict. She never revealed the result too early by showing a smile or a frown. She stared at the girl for several excruciatingly long seconds before saying in her most serious voice, "Katerina, I am afraid that answer is correct." It was only then that Philomena Sprite smiled a broad, victorious smile. "You are the new Stupendously Spectacular Spelling Bee champion!" Katerina's hands flew to her cheeks, the lights flashed, theme music blared, and a shower of confetti sprinkled down from above like coloured snowfall. The audience were on their feet, cheering and clapping. "You were right," Boo whispered to his sister, "as always." Philomena Sprite handed Katerina the trophy, which was almost too big for her to hold. Her parents rushed onto the stage crying and hugging their daughter. When the applause eventually quietened, Philomena Sprite spoke into the microphone. "Katerina, tell everyone at home how this moment feels." She hugged the trophy with both hands and thought for a few seconds before saying, "From the time I was a little girl, I've dreamed of winning the Stupendously Spectacular Spelling Bee." She paused, a small tear forming in the corner of her eye. "And now, it's really happening." More tears flowed as Katerina's mum and dad hugged her tight. "It most certainly is happening," Philomena Sprite declared. "From thousands of spellers competing in hundreds of rounds and one riveting grand final, you are our new champion. And now to your prizes." She took an envelope from the trophy stand. "As always, there is a $500 voucher for Mr. Trinket's Book Emporium." Katerina accepted it with an awestruck, "Thank you. And that's not all. We can now reveal your major prize." There was a drum roll. The Wimple family listened with great anticipation. There was a different prize each time. There'd been a family cruise and a trip to the world's tallest toy store in New York. Once, it was a holiday to the wizarding world of Harry Potter. "You know how you like amusement parks?" Philomena Sprite asked. "Yes," Katerina nodded feverishly. "You and your family are going to Disneyland with $5,000 in spending money." Katerina squealed. She couldn't help it. It just came out. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "You are welcome, welcome, welcome." The family fell into hugs and even more joyful tears. Philomena Sprite turned to the camera. That's it for another stupendously spectacular spelling bee. I'd like to thank all our sensational spellers and our astounding audience. Were you able to spell all the words correctly? Would you like the chance to stand on this very stage? If you think you have what it takes, why not sign up? She looked down the barrel of the camera and for a moment India Wimple thought the pronouncer was speaking only to her. Because our next stupendously spectacular spelling bee champion could be you. Philomena Sprite didn't move for what felt like whole seconds, pointing her shiny red fingernail at India with the smallest of knowing smiles on her lips. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.